The sun hung low over the village of Thornwood, casting long shadows across the dusty marketplace. In the shadow of the grand stone manor on the hill, a young woman knelt in the garden, her hands stained with soil and her dress torn at the hem. Her name was Elena. She had not always lived this way, working from dawn until long after the stars appeared in the velvet sky. There had been a time years ago when her mother was alive, when the manor had been filled with warmth and laughter, when she had been her father's cherished daughter, reading by the fireplace and learning the old stories of their people. But that time felt like a distant dream now. Her father had remarried 3 years after her mother's death. Lady Marguerite had arrived with 2 daughters of her own, both beautiful in the way that demanded attention. They wore fine dresses of silk and velvet, their hair always perfectly arranged, their hands soft and unblemished. Elena's father had died the following winter, his illness swift and merciless. And everything had changed. Now Elena was little more than a servant in her own home. She slept in the small room beside the kitchen, rose before dawn to light the fires, and worked until her bones ached. Her stepmother made certain of that. "You will never amount to anything," Lady Marguerite would say, her voice sharp as winter wind. "You are plain, unremarkable. No one will ever choose you for anything of importance." Elena tried not to let the words burrow too deeply into her heart. But on the hardest days, when her hands were raw and her body trembled with exhaustion, she wondered if perhaps her stepmother was right. The world of Thornwood was not an ordinary one. Beneath the surface of normal village life, another reality existed. A reality of shifting forms and ancient bloodlines. A reality of werewolves. Most of the villagers were human, going about their daily lives unaware of the pack that lived among them. But Elena knew. Her mother had been one of them, a wolf-born woman of grace and strength. Elena carried that blood in her veins, though her wolf had never emerged. She could feel it sometimes, a restless presence beneath her skin, but it remained locked away, silent and unreachable. Her stepmother and stepsisters were human, with no connection to that hidden world. Perhaps that was why Lady Marguerite treated her with such disdain. Fear often wore the mask of cruelty. The autumn equinox was approaching, and with it came the gathering. Every year, on the night when day and night stood in perfect balance, the packs from across the territory assembled in the great clearing beyond the forest. It was a night of ceremony and tradition, when the Alpha King himself would appear to renew the bonds between the packs and, on rare occasions, to choose a mate. This year, rumors had spread like wildfire through the village. The Alpha King was seeking his queen. Every unmated she-wolf of age was required to attend the gathering. Even those like Elena, whose wolves remained dormant. When the summons arrived at the manor, delivered by a stern-faced pack messenger, Elena felt her heart quicken with something she did not dare name as hope. Lady Marguerite read the scroll with narrowed eyes, then let it fall to the table with a dismissive gesture. "You will not be going," she announced to Elena, who stood in the doorway with a basket of linens in her arms. Elena's voice was quiet but steady. "The summons says all she-wolves must attend." "It is the Alpha King's command." Her stepmother's eyes flashed with anger. "You think anyone would choose you? Look at yourself. Your dress is in tatters, your hands are rough as tree bark, and you have not even been able to shift. You are an embarrassment." She leaned forward, her words deliberate and cutting. "You will never be chosen, Elena. Not by the Alpha King, not by anyone. You are nothing." Elena felt the words strike her like physical blows, but she held her stepmother's gaze. Somewhere deep inside, beneath the years of harsh treatment and endless work, a small ember of defiance still burned. "I will attend," she said softly. "It is the law." Lady Marguerite's face twisted with rage, but before she could respond, Elena turned and left the room. The night of the gathering arrived, cool and clear, with a full moon rising above the treetops. Elena had done what she could to make herself presentable. She wore her mother's old dress, carefully mended and cleaned. It was simple, made of pale gray linen that had faded over the years, but it had been beautiful once. She braided her dark hair and pinned it with the silver clasp that had been her mother's, one of the few treasures Lady Marguerite had not taken. As she walked the forest path toward the gathering, she could hear the sounds of the celebration ahead, drums beating in rhythm with the earth's heartbeat, voices raised in ancient songs. When she emerged into the clearing, she was struck by the sight before her. Hundreds of wolves and their human forms filled the space beneath the towering oaks. Bonfires blazed, casting dancing shadows. The air hummed with power and anticipation. Elena kept to the edges, trying to remain unnoticed. She saw her stepsisters near the center, dressed in their finest gowns, laughing and preening. Lady Marguerite stood with them, surveying the crowd like a hawk searching for prey. Then a hush fell over the gathering. The Alpha King had arrived. Elena felt him before she saw him, a presence that commanded attention without demanding it, power that did not need to be announced. Every head turned toward the northern edge of the clearing, where a massive silver wolf emerged from between the trees. He was magnificent. His coat gleamed like moonlight on water. His eyes were amber gold, ancient and knowing. As he walked forward, his form shimmered and shifted, and suddenly a man stood where the wolf had been. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell to his collar and those same striking amber eyes. He wore simple clothing, but there was no mistaking his authority. The crowd parted before him like water around a stone. The ceremony began. The Alpha King walked among the gathered she-wolves, pausing occasionally to speak with one or another. Elena watched from her place in the shadows, trying to ignore the hollow ache in her chest. Her stepmother's words echoed in her mind. "You will never be chosen." Perhaps it was true. Perhaps she had been foolish to hope, even for a moment, that she might be worthy of notice. The Alpha King continued his slow progression through the crowd. Elena noticed how the unmated females tried to catch his attention, how they displayed their finest qualities, but he moved past them all with polite disinterest. Then, his steps faltered. He had been near the center of the gathering, but now his head turned sharply toward the shadows, where Elena stood. His amber eyes locked onto her with an intensity that made her breath catch. The crowd noticed. Whispers rippled through the assembly. The Alpha King began walking directly toward her. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. She wanted to step back, to disappear into the forest, but her feet seemed rooted to the earth. He stopped before her, towering over her smaller frame, his gaze searching her face with an expression she could not read. "What is your name?" His voice was deep, resonant, like distant thunder. "Elena," she managed to whisper. "Elena Ashwood." His eyes widened slightly, recognition flickering across his features. "Ashwood. Your mother was Elena Ashwood." Elena nodded, surprised. "You knew her?" "I knew of her. She was one of the finest wolves of her generation, known for her courage and her wisdom." He studied Elena more closely. "And you carry her blood." "My wolf has never emerged," Elena said, the admission painful. Around them, she could hear gasps and murmurs. She could feel her stepmother's furious stare burning into her back. The Alpha King's expression softened in a way that transformed his entire face. "That is not what matters." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. When she did not, he took her hand gently in his. The moment their skin touched, Elena felt something surge through her. A warmth, a recognition, a sense of coming home that she had never experienced before. The Alpha King's eyes widened, and she knew he felt it too. "The bond," he said softly, wonder in his voice. "You are my mate." The clearing erupted in shocked whispers. Elena stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. Lady Marguerite pushed through the crowd, her face a mask of disbelief and rage. "This cannot be." "She is nothing, just a servant girl who cannot even shift." The Alpha King's gaze turned to Lady Marguerite, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. His voice, when he spoke, carried absolute authority. "You will show respect to your future queen." Lady Marguerite paled and stumbled backward. The Alpha King turned back to Elena, his expression gentle once more. "I am Matthias," he said, "and I have been searching for you for a very long time, though I did not know your face until this moment." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "But I am no one. I cannot even reach my wolf." Matthias cupped her face with surprising tenderness. "You are not no one. You are my mate, chosen not by me but by fate itself. The bond between true mates cannot be mistaken." He smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through storm clouds. "As for your wolf, perhaps she has simply been waiting for the right moment, waiting to feel safe enough to emerge." As he spoke those words, Elena felt something shift inside her. The presence she had always sensed beneath her skin stirred, stretching like something waking from a long sleep. Matthias's eyes lit with recognition. "There she is," he murmured. "I can feel her. She knows me." Elena gasped as warmth flooded through her body. For the first time in her life, she felt complete. The days that followed passed in a blur of wonder and adjustment. Elena moved from the servants' quarters of her stepmother's manor to the Alpha King's residence, a beautiful lodge built of timber and stone at the heart of the Pax territory. Matthias was patient with her, never rushing, always giving her space to adjust to her new reality. Slowly, Elena began to understand what the bond meant. It was not just attraction or affection, though both of those grew with each passing day. It was recognition at the deepest level, a sense that she had found the missing piece of herself. With Matthias's support and encouragement, Elena's wolf finally emerged 3 weeks after the gathering. The transformation was painful but transcendent. When she stood on 4 legs for the first time, her fur the same dark sable as her mother's had been, she threw her head back and howled with pure joy. Matthias, in his silver wolf form, stood beside her, his pleasure evident in every line of his powerful body. Lady Marguerite and her daughters left the territory shortly after, unable to bear the reversal of fortune. Elena felt no satisfaction in their departure, only a quiet relief that she would never again have to hear her stepmother's cruel words. On the winter solstice, Elena and Matthias were formally bonded before the assembled Pax. Elena wore a gown of silver and white, with her mother's clasp holding her dark hair in place. As she and Matthias exchanged vows beneath the stars, she felt her mother's presence like a gentle hand on her shoulder. Later, when the celebration had quieted and they stood alone on the balcony overlooking the forest, Matthias pulled her close. "What are you thinking?" he asked, his voice warm against her ear. Elena smiled, leaning into his embrace. "I am thinking that my stepmother was wrong," she said softly. "She said I would never be chosen. But the truth is, I was always meant to be chosen. By you, by fate, by the life I was born to live." Matthias turned her to face him, his amber eyes glowing with love and pride. "You were never nothing, Elena. You were everything, waiting for the right moment to bloom." He kissed her then, gentle and deep, and Elena felt the last of her old fears dissolve like morning frost in sunlight. She had been chosen after all. Not despite who she was, but because of it. And in being chosen, she had finally learned to choose herself.